Hey everybody, we're working asynchronously today and my system isn't really working very well sound-wise, and I have two kiddos here at home that are also doing lessons. So I'm recording today's lesson, but this is what we're going over. We're going over naming ionic compounds. So we did talk about ionic compound bonding before, but we didn't really do naming. We did covalent naming in the last unit, or last class. Naming ionic compounds is going to be just as easy. So let's look at what we're doing. What's our agenda? So your learning outcome is that I can use the rules for naming ionic compounds. First thing you should do is attendance. So if you haven't done that already, pause, go to classwork for our class, right here, classwork. It's the very first thing you're due now. Go make sure that you've got that taken care of. After you do that, in this lesson we're going to learn about naming ions, which we've kind of already done, and then naming ionic compounds. We're going to put it together. And then you're going to have a few practice problems. Okay, so how do I get out of... So I made that bigger so we could see it, but now it doesn't look like it's letting me minimize. Oh, there it is. There's a little X. I just didn't see it. Okay, so I wanted to show you that you do have these references, these materials right here that'll help you. This is a list of polyatomic ions. You do not need to memorize them. I will always give that to you with whatever lesson you're going to need it in. You do need access to the periodic table, and I have that with links in your lesson as well, so you can access that as you need it. Here's the first time we're seeing our polyatomic ions list. Notice there's only one cation that we're going to worry about, and that's ammonium. If you've ever smelled pine sol or any kind of pine cleaner, it has ammonia in it. In solution, that becomes ammonium, right? Because ammonia is actually a gas. Ammonium is what it is when it's in liquid form. And then all of these are negative ions, or we said those are called anions. And these are the most common ones. That's why this is the only ones we're going to worry about. And you'll see some of these in the video coming up. Carbonate, that's in sodas. Cyanide is in rat poison. Hydroxides, most bases have hydroxides in them. Chromate is a good one to know. It's fairly common in chemical substances, paints, things to look out for. Nitrate and nitrite are very close in nature. They're very similar to each other. Sulfate and sulfite as well are very similar to each other. Phosphate and phosphite. Bicarbonate is baking soda. Chlorate is one of the things that goes into making bleach. And then acetate is vinegar. That's the ion that's in vinegar. Okay, so you're going to see some of those in this video on Edpuzzle. So you'll need to go to your Edpuzzle account and watch that. When you are finished, you need a comment here. Most of you do really well with these, and you know I'll look on there, and if you make like a 70, I'll give you 7 out of 10 points, or sometimes, a lot of times I round it up and I'll give you 8 out of 10 points. If it shows me that you didn't do it, you get 0 points. Okay, so just writing done doesn't automatically give you points. You have to actually go through that part of the lesson. Here, there are some examples of ions that are named. First thing you're going to do is you're going to record yourself reading these ion names. Okay, that's part of how we learn, is not just seeing, but hearing and speaking. The more parts of your brain you use, the more you're going to remember. And then you're going to write the formula for each of these ions. So you're going to show your work, and I have here a periodic table. I have that list of polyatomic ions, and so you're just going to type out, or you can write out, use whatever tool you're comfortable with here, and tell me what those formulas look like. Okay. Here, I've read part of these notes to you. Remember, you can zoom in, read this, and then look at the flow chart, how it shows you. We have the barium ion, we have the chloride ion. You just remove the word ion and you put them together. And just like we did with covalent compounds, you change the ending to "ide." Okay. What's easier here is that it doesn't matter how many of each ion is present. You just name the ions. So it's actually a little easier than covalent nomenclature. Again, here you've got some examples of formulas and their names. You're going to read out loud these names, look at the formula, and then look at how the name is. Notice it's not calcium dichloride. This is a metal. It's ionic. So it doesn't matter how many are there. You just name the elements. All right, so after that, you are going to name each of these on your own. This is an I, a capital I. Right, sometimes we get confused whether it's like this is only two elements. This is calcium and this is chlorine, or the chloride ion. Right, that's not an I, that's Cl for chlorine. This is AgI. That's only two elements there. And then read these notes, and it's showing you even with the polyatomic ion, which I'll go over in the video. It's an ion that has two or more elements in it, but it still just has its own name. Whatever the name is, you just put those two together. And that's it. That's the name of the ionic compound. You just put the names of the ions together. All right, so after that example, you're going to tell me the names of these two ions that have ionic compounds that have polyatomic ions in them. And then here you're going to write these formulas as well. Some are polyatomic, some are not. And then at the end, I need to hear you reading this summary. Okay, so I want to hear in your own voice that you're processing this information. Okay, and then you can click submit. And if I've entered a key on here, then at the top here it'll show you which ones you got right or wrong, or partial points for. And if you didn't get something all the way green, you might want to go back and make sure that you properly spelled what the name was, or wrote the formula correctly. So aside from that, that is today's lesson. And remember that you can submit this as many times as you want to get as high a grade as you can. But you do need to make sure that you are starting it today. Finishing it today is the best course of action. But remember that we're moving on. We're processing this information. We're putting it all together. So don't put it off. We need to take care of it ASAP, as soon as possible. All right? You all take care. You can send me messages on Remind. You can also send me messages through Focus, the gradebook, or you can also email me, okay? So y'all good luck, and I will see you next time.